Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Friday, October 31st, 2025. It's Halloween. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. President Trump calling for Republicans to use the so-called nuclear option and change Senate rules to end our country's devastating government shutdown. Healthcare advocates in California pushing for a one-time wealth tax on the Golden State's richest citizens in order to make up for billions of dollars in federal funding cuts to Medicaid. And the Secretary of War issues an urgent warning about the rising threat posed to the entire planet by Communist China's unprecedented military buildup. Also, former Vice President Kamala Harris launching an inflammatory and expletive-laden rant concerning President Trump's White House renovation. And the world's most expensive commode, it's about to hit the auction block, and you'll never believe how much they're asking for this solid gold throne. All this and a bunch more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin here. Like people throughout the entire nation, President Trump, he's had enough of this government shutdown and now urging Senate Republicans to play what he calls their Trump card in order to get our country up and running once again. You know, other countries, they go out of business, not the U.S. This is despicable. The president's calling on the GOP to eliminate the so-called filibuster rule, which allows Senate to delay voting on any pending legislation simply by extending the debate. Great, just keep on yakking and yakking. Currently, it takes 60 votes to overcome a filibuster, and Democrats have been relying on this rule to block the passage of a short-term funding bill, which would reopen the government. Now Trump is demanding that Republicans change the rule itself so that moving forward, only a simple majority of votes are needed. In my mind, that makes perfect sense. Trump says that during his recent trip to South Korea, he spent a great deal of time thinking about how to solve the current Democrat-caused shutdown, and that ultimately, he concluded the so-called nuclear option is the best path forward. Now, don't get excited, not that nuclear, the other nuclear. He says that with their outrageous demands, Democrats have lost all sense of reality, that what they're asking for will ultimately harm American citizens, and that the Republican Party will simply not let that happen. Yeah, America 47, he's got your back. Goes on to claim that changing the rule would allow the GOP to immediately save our country from further damage, make it easier for them to appoint the best judges and U.S. attorneys, and give the Republican majority the power they need to make America great again. Additionally, the president points out that when the Democrats held power during the Biden administration, they also fought to eliminate the filibuster rule so they could expand the Supreme Courts, add a couple of new blue states, and take a number of other highly destructive actions. However, they could never muster up the necessary votes in the Senate to get the job done. Hey, remember, obliterating the filibuster, it's only okay if the Democrats do it. And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. 47, he is 100% correct. The only way to end this Democrat shutdown is to end the filibuster, reopen the government, and get down to the business of running the country. A bit more info. Again, here's the skinny on the FB, the filibuster, which we just referenced a moment ago. It's nothing more than a goofy tactic used in the U.S. Senate to delay or block a vote on a bill by using unlimited debate to talk at length. Now, if there's one thing Democrats can do and do well, it's talk at length. But it's all talk and no action. Yeah, a bit more to it, but that's it in a nutshell. And those knuckleheads are using and abusing the filibuster, which is why we're in the mess that we're in right now. Now, if you haven't been following closely, you should know that the Democrat shutdown is destroying our country. It's making us look foolish on the global stage. It's threatening the safety of our nation's aviation system. Tons of government employees, they're out of work. And now millions and millions of Americans who rely on SNAP benefits, the food stamps and such, to feed their families, they're simply being abandoned. The Democrats have the power to represent the people whom they're charged with watching out for. But right now, they're only serving themselves and their short-sighted agenda. They're one-trick ponies, and they're playing a game they simply can't win. Now, drop us a note. Tell us what you're thinking. And we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Now, Producer Davey, what are we looking at today? What are folks saying?
Okay, Bill, we have Agnes checking in with us today from Dubuque, Iowa.
What you got for us, Agnes?
She says we absolutely must get our government back up and running no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
Letting the Dems get away with this nonsense much longer will result in irreparable harm.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And by the way, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, I like this guy, Brother Jason Smith. He said it best. Democrats shut down the government in order to put illegal immigrants ahead of Americans, attempting to undo vital reforms that Republicans enacted just 3 months ago in that big, beautiful bill. Hardworking Americans, folks like you and I, should not be paying taxes in order to subsidize the health care of those who are here in the U.S. illegally. They're breaking the law. But that's exactly what Democrats are demanding in order to reopen the government, and they're holding all of us hostage. All right, change things up just a bit now. Turn our attention to California, where a newly proposed measure is hoping to make up for the state's staggering loss of federal health care funds by putting a hefty tax on their wealthiest citizens. And watch this one very carefully, because if Cali gets away with it, then it may take hold in your state as well. Yeah, it's funny if it's just California, but wait, this could catch on. This fancy new deal aims to change each of the Golden States, make that charge each of the Golden States resident billionaires a one-time fee of 5% of their total net worth, and then use that money to support the state's increasingly desperate Medicaid program. A small portion of the proceeds would be earmarked for public education as well. It starts as a one-time fee. They said this one time, but you know full well what's going to happen next. Yeah, it's a social program, so it'll be next year and the year after that, and so on and so on. You know the scam. Supporters of the measure, they argue that there are a couple of hundred billionaires in California, that they're worth a combined $2 trillion, and that the rest of the state's enormous population, they already pay a much higher portion of their income to taxes. That's goofy math. It never holds up, and that's another one of their scams. They also claim that if the measure doesn't pass, millions of people will soon lose their health care, and the ultimate outcome could be tragedy after tragedy. So, the folks behind the measure, they're looking to recover what may turn into $30 billion in federal funding cuts to California's Medicaid program. In the meantime, they've asked the state's attorney general for permission to begin collecting the hundreds of thousands of signatures which are needed to get the measure on the November 2026 ballot. And by the way, Davey, I know you know about that stuff. How many signatures are they looking for?
They're looking for 870,000 signatures.
Good luck with that. 870,000. All right. Final thought. This is the News Roundup Lowdown, and here's the real deal. California is known for tons of wacky ideas, and this one cracks the top three. Now, read between the lines. Really drink this in. They want to track down 200 ladies and or gentlemen who have $1 billion or more in their low-interest checking account over at Wells Fargo, and then send them one of those singing telegrams demanding that they surrender an additional 5% of their spoils. By the way, singing telegrams, they ain't cheap. And who's footing the bill for that? Also, if singing telegrammers make billions, would they also be subject to that new tax? Davey, do singing telegrammers make billions?
Oh, some of those guys make a good chunk of change, Bill.
Yeah, it's a pretty good racket. Nice work if you can find it. It's all kind of confusing. Hey, first up, any money which anybody earns, it's already taxed. So this is actually nothing more than a penalty tax. Second, the taxes which billionaires pay, it's already exponentially more than those taxes which are paid by the bulk of society. So really, this amounts to kind of a double whammy tax. And next, it doesn't matter how much money, how many homes, how many paintings, cars, or orange widgets anybody has. What's yours is yours. What's mine is mine. That's the end of the story. Here's the deal. You can't tax a nation into prosperity, and robbing from the rich and giving to the poor, it's just dumb. Vilifying and penalizing people who have more money than you, it's kind of short-sighted, illogical, and bad business, which means the end result, it'll be twofold. First off, billionaires, they're already doing it. They're going to find ways to hide their money, or they'll simply do what many of them have already done. They'll simply leave the stage. Now, is this the most ludicrous thing you've ever heard of? Drop us a note. We're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, to the email bag, it's all you.
Okay, Bill, we have Meredith from Newport, Rhode Island checking in with us.
What you got for us, Meredith?
She says, I salute California for telling it like it is. Skimming that cash from the oligarchs is no skin off their backs, but will save millions of lives, and I'm all for it.
That makes absolutely no sense. The millions of lives you're talking about are people who are potentially here illegal immigrants looking for a free handout from the federal government. All you're doing, you're robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. They've tried that a million times before. It never pans out. It's also unethical. What somebody else has earned, you have no right to take that from them. All right, David, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, a different view here from Harvey in Madison, Wisconsin.
What you got for us, Harv?
He says this is just a scam to provide free health care to illegal immigrants, and Gruesome Newsom and his pals can take a hike.
Listen, millions of Californians will lose their health care if we don't steal money from 200 billionaires in the Golden State. That's exactly what they're saying, and it's a big, juicy scam. Governor Newsom, Gavin Newsom's crime-riddled, drug-laden, gang-infested, beautiful state of California. Now they want to continue to rob from the rich and give to the poor. Pure rubbish. And again, it's all a big, juicy scam. Don't fall for it. We'll switch things up just a bit now and shift our focus to a dire warning from our Secretary of War about the rising danger of the Chinese Communist Party and their rapidly expanding military capabilities. This is very serious business. At a critical meeting with our allies in Japan, Pete Hegseth sounding the alarm and declaring that right now the threats we're all facing from China's unprecedented military buildup, they're 100% real, extremely urgent, and getting worse with each passing day. As he points out, the communist regime's extraordinarily aggressive actions speak for themselves. He says it's more imperative than ever for all of us to act quickly and immediately begin investing a great deal more in our defense spending while there's still time and before it's too late. You know, it's the worst time possible to bury your head in the sand. You've got to get to work. And he's absolutely spot on. Hegseth goes on to say that both the U.S. and Japan are in complete agreement about the threat posed by China's rapidly advancing military arsenal. Says that in order to strengthen our alliance, we need to work together to develop extremely lethal armed forces, which are intimidating enough to keep a war from beginning in the first place. Experts say that China's modernized military now a significant threat to both the U.S. and our allies on the land as well as in the air, and especially on the water, where they have the largest navy in the world. How did that happen? They also say that if a military confrontation ever breaks out between our two nations, China would be a formidable adversary because their forces, they're concentrated in the Pacific region while ours are spread out all across the globe. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. This Pete Hegseth fella, he's a bright guy. And in case you haven't been paying close enough attention, he's spot on when he says that China is right now a real and credible threat, not only to its neighbor Taiwan right next door, but to Japan, the U.S., and others. If you're not just sure how much of a threat China is, take a trip into the not-too-distant past. You know, less than just 2 months ago, during China's military parade in Beijing, the war machine which that country put on display for the whole world to see, absolutely overwhelming. I can see the pictures in my mind. They might be right over here as well. By the way, unless those aircraft, bombs, and more were simply dolled-up Hollywood props, then we should all be terribly concerned. On display at that grand shindig, a massive amount of military hardware, the public debut of what they call their nuclear triad with land, sea, and air-based strategic weapons, hypersonic anti-ship missiles, laser and microwave weapons, that's for countering drones, and advanced unmanned systems like land-based robots and underwater drones. Hey, color me anxious, but I lose sleep over junk like this every night. I'm always thinking about it. Now, China cannot be trusted, and anybody who is even theoretically in their potential crosshairs should be right now and at all times on high alert. Today, Taiwan is well fortified. Japan ponying up some extra dough for increased military spending. We're doing nothing on the cheap right here stateside. And it's critical that we don't just keep up with China militarily, but that we surpass them on every imaginable level whenever we can. You are perhaps as alarmed by all this as we are, and share your thoughts with us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. I don't mean to say we as in you and I, Davey, but I'm alarmed. I'm assuming you're alarmed as well. Are you alarmed?
Well, yeah, it certainly raises some alarm bells, Bill, that's for sure.
Yeah. What are folks saying about this one?
Clara in Columbus, Ohio, checking in says, every day I hear more and more about the evils of China's communist regime. I'm glad the world is finally waking up to that fact and banding together to take the threat seriously.
Yeah, the world is banding together. Clearly, Japan knows what's going on. South Korea knows what's going on. Here, stateside, we absolutely know what's going on. China can be a friend to the U.S., and we can be a friend to China. We have one thing in common. We both want to see that war, Russia's war with Ukraine, come to an end. And I've been saying it all along. China just said it recently. They want to do what they can to help effect an end to that war as well. So we can work together on that. Look, China has never been as much of a threat, though, as they are right now. And we have to ensure that they never have a military-industrial complex which is superior to ours. We need one another for trade purposes, but we also need to watch them very, very carefully. All right, some additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. And first up, we're just talking about Russia. Russia deploying nearly 170,000 troops to eastern Ukraine as they push for a major victory on the battlefield before the onset of winter. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calling the situation right now in the embattled region extremely difficult and complicated as well. Meanwhile, a new report claims that President Trump called off plans for a recent summit with Vladimir Putin due to the Russian leader's hardline demands regarding an end to the ongoing invasion. Closer to home, former Vice President Kamala Harris going into full-fledged meltdown mode over President Trump's decision to renovate the White House. In a rant filled with all kinds of fun, but unsuitable words for women and children, she claims the president is interested in creating a ballroom for his rich friends while ignoring the fact that babies are going to starve when SNAP benefits run out in just a few hours. Well, she apparently didn't get the memo that it's the Democrats, her party, who shut the government down, and they're the ones who are now starving our fellow Americans. I say this with absolute love and respect. Madam former VP.
They're going to get knock, knock. Who's there?
Shh. Be very quiet. Go away now. And in a bit of related news, food delivery service Instacart. I love these guys. They say they're now offering customers who receive SNAP benefits half off their next grocery order. And they're joining a growing number of similar companies who are taking steps to help out the public as the government prepares to cut off federal food aid payments. Instacart adding that any SNAP recipient who placed an order on their platform during the month of October, it's just about up, is eligible for the deal. And those are some very generous cats. We'll meander now over to the world of business and taking a quick peek at a couple of stories making waves in finance, also in trade and more. And we lead things off with a bit of a follow-up to a related story we shared with you on this program yesterday. Walmart is pushing back against rumors claiming that the retail giant is having plans to close their doors due to a growing number of online looting threats linked to the halt of federal food assistance. You heard about that story yesterday. People talking online on social media about pretty much raiding and looting the shelves at Walmarts and other grocery stores. They say those claims are entirely false and that all of their stores are going to be open for business as usual. They might be open, but tons of junk at Walmart still under lock and key. But the big mart remains open. Moving along, and some troubling news for the U.S. housing market. According to a key real estate report, home prices are now plummeting in nearly half of America's largest cities, leaving many potential buyers in Florida, Texas, and more with a bit of an advantage. Not so good if you're a seller, but if you're trying to buy, there's a pretty good time. And you know the old saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The head honcho at MGM Resorts now admitting that his company's widespread summer pricing policies were a complete flop. He says in hindsight, charging $26 for a bottle of water was a bit much, you think, and that they should have been more sensitive to the needs of their customers, and that moving forward, they're course correcting by adjusting their prices and bringing them back down to earth. In other words, Davey, if I got this right, what he's saying is that a bottle of water will no longer be $26. It'll be semi-affordable, but they're still going to get the best of you at the blackjack table. Is that right?
Oh, the blackjack table, Bill, the roulette wheel, the slot machines, and all the rest.
Yeah, they got you. Nobody gets out of Vegas with more than a couple of bucks in their pocket. And now it is time for a quick foray into the lighter side of news, and we begin today with an extremely rare sighting on Long Island, New York, that is. They got hundreds of bird watchers flocking to the area, peering through their binoculars and flapping their wings with delight. The reason for all the hoopla is a big deal. A seldom spotted common cuckoo bird, which has only been found in America a few times in the past. Now, Davey, is this the same cuckoo bird that they catch and then they put inside the cuckoo clocks and they train them to tell you what time it is every hour?
No, Bill. Those clocks go on sale at places like Walmart for about $29, and the birds inside of those are fake. Completely fake.
Oh, I thought they were real cuckoo birds. All right. Moving along, in case you haven't noticed, prices are skyrocketing everywhere, and the slammer is no exception. The FCC just announced plans to drastically increase the cost for inmates in prisons and in jails all over the country to make phone calls to the outside world. Critics say the consequences, they can be kind of dreadful. They claim families can't afford to foot the bill, and that call times are going to nosedive, and that the prisoners are going to be absolutely furious. You know, Dave, is an old saying. It says, don't do the time if you can't do the crime.
No, Bill, you got that backwards. It's don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Oh, I was half right. Now, if you're in the mood to renovate your bathroom, we've got an upgrade for you, and check this out. Sotheby's Auction House in New York now offering buyers an opportunity to get their hands on the world's most valuable toilet. Commode, if you will, and it can become your personal throne for a starting bid of just about $10 million. The fully functional loo is made entirely out of a couple hundred pounds of solid gold. Last time I checked, gold, Davey, what, about $4,000 per ounce? Is that right?
And rising, Bill.
Created by an Italian artist as a sculpture to satirize America's wealth, and it's going to go to the highest bidder when the final gavel sounds on November 18th. Dave, would you mind hitting that gavel just a couple of times? A little bang, bang, please? Just like that. Starting bid, $10 million. Now, with that $10 million bid, Davey, if you win, I imagine the price will go up after that. By chance, do they throw in like a free lifetime supply of Charmin or maybe a free bucket of Tidy Bowl? Anything?
No, Bill. I think all you get is the solid gold toilet, but I think it's a bargain at that price anyway.
I don't know. $10 million for a commode. And now it is time for us to call it a wrap on the Friday edition of the Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day here on the program, we'd like to share with you a very notable quote. And these enlightening words come to us today from the great Elvis Presley, who said, "Truth is like the sun. You can shut it out for a time, but it ain't going away." Presley was a legendary American singer, actor, and all-around entertainer, a movie star as well, who was affectionately known as the king of rock and roll, and who's renowned as one of the most culturally significant rock stars in our country's history. You and I don't talk much about music, but Dave, I never told you this. I'm a huge Elvis fan. Have I ever told you that?
No, Bill, I didn't know that.
I was always a fan of a couple of Elvis songs. For example, Allison, Veronica, and then he redid Burt Bacharach's I'll Never Fall in Love Again in the second Austin Powers movie. He's a great singer.
No,
Love
Bill,
that guy.
Bill,
Love
no,
that guy.
Bill.
What?
That's not Elvis Presley. That's Elvis Costello. They're two different Elvises.
Who knew? I thought there was only one. Okay, yeah, you got me on that one. And now it is time for us to race on out of here for the weekend. But before we do, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast. I hope you're right about that Elvis thing. For example, simply subscribe to the program. Hit the button. That way you never miss even a single episode. And now it's Halloween. Looks like our time. Yeah, it's officially up. Have an awesome day today. Enjoy the Halloween weekend. Please stay safe. Let's all continue to watch out for one another. And with that, Engineer Jamie, please, let's fade to black. We'll dim the lights here very gently, and we'll see you right back here on Monday afternoon. And by the way, Dave, before you go, I was just thinking about this. You may have gotten this one wrong. I think Elvis is still with us, and right now I think he's married to the great jazz artist Diana Krall. Isn't that right?
No, Bill, you're mixing up your Elvises. I mean, I'm talking about Elvis Presley, one of the greatest musicians of all time.
Okay.
He had hit after hit. Heartbreak Hotel, Don't Be Cruel, Hound Dog, Can't Help Falling in Love, Suspicious Minds, Viva Las Vegas, on and on. I mean, this guy's a legend. What? He lived in Graceland. He had a pink Cadillac. He had all kinds of things. Everybody knows who Elvis is, Bill. There's only one king of rock and roll, and it's not Elvis Costello.
Hello, human resources.
Where you come up with
I can't take this anymore. Every day. Every day, the abuse.
Let me tell you something. No, you're absolutely wrong. Who doesn't know?